All right, now we're getting the meat of it. This Hitler's rise to power. I've done 4 takes now. The first 3, I couldn't hear Dmitri talking in front of class. Nobody could hear a thing I was saying, so I'm going to do a 4th one. I know Dmitri's at home right now, but I could still hear him way out here in Marathon. Either way, Hitler begins to put his master plan in action. The first part is the Reichstag fire, the Enabling Act, which we talked about. Then he moves on the Night of Long Knives, and we're talking about Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass. The Reichstag fires, again, are when Hitler bombs his own building, his own government building, and then blames it on communists, creating a fake terrorist attack. He uses this terrorist attack to pass the Enabling Act. The Enabling Act, which is almost identical to what the Emperor does in Star Wars, which is why that's there. The Enabling Act allows him to do whatever he needs in order to put down and deal with these terrorists, which means he's going to get rid of the Bill of Rights, which means now he can go around just arresting Jews and gives them the power of the Holocaust. You haven't decided to do it yet. On a side note, for the Star Wars theme thing, the Lebensborn kids, if you think about it, are the clone army. They're these kids trained up from birth, all look the same, blonde or blue eyes, and they're just designed to be his warriors. Stormtrooper is even German for their soldiers. But either way, this allows him to do whatever he wants, get rid of the Bill of Rights, which effectively makes a democracy into a fascist country every time. Hitler's leader of a fascist country. Italy is also a fascist ally of his. If we were in class, I might talk about learning targets. Well, I would talk about learning targets and have on the board and stuff like that, but this is it. If you get nothing else, get this. When power and ideology conflict, power always wins. Adolf Hitler says that. Many historians think it's key. I often think it's key, although I waver on that a little bit, and there are other historians' opinions that are interesting as well. It's also possible Hitler changes his mind due to the drug use he becomes involved in, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well, constantly in the way that drug use just do. But anyways, when power and ideology conflict, power always wins. No exceptions. Now, ideology means what you believe in. So in ideology, what you believe in, when what you believe in is in conflict to power, power is going to win. So change your mind. So, for example, one theory is if Hitler had been born in a country full of Jews, he never went after them. He might have went after Germans. If he'd born in a country with like 1% blonde or blue-eyed Germans and all Jews, if he only cares about power, he might have said, well, it doesn't matter what I thought. I'm going to blame all of Germany's problems on the blonde or blue-eyed people and get these Jews to help me kill them. And then start a war. Anyways, that's the theory. The Night of Long Knives. So here's where things get a little, here's where things really start to ramp up. The Night of Long Knives has to do with Brom and his brown shirts. Now, Brom, if you recall, was the commander of a large number of out-of-work soldiers who he banded together, and then Hitler uses them as rallies to put down people who protested, to make himself look important, stand attention. They also help him massively with the beer hall push, even though it's a failure. It's largely led by those guys. Rom's part of the deal, he's a partner with Hitler. Rom's part of the deal is that he's going to be in charge of the German military when Hitler takes over. Now that Hitler's looking to run for office, to run for politics, and win that way instead of a violent overthrow of the government, instead of a coup or a push. Rom's really in the way. His guys get a little too rowdy sometimes and make Hitler look bad occasionally. They still have a use, but all the same, they've become a massive, massive force. But the major problem is the German military hates Adolf Hitler. They don't have anything to do with him. Now, they have sympathetic leanings towards him in many of his views. But what they can't get around is they're not going to be led by this lower-level guy. Rom is almost like an evil Napoleon-like character, if you want to think of him like that. He started at a very low level. He was not from the nobility breed that the Prussian military, the now German military, was used to, where most of their commanders were nobles and knights' kids. So, Rom and Hitler are arguing about this. Rom even hires supposedly a sharpshooter, just in case, and does some target shooting in case he and Hitler can't deal with things. They start arguing back and forth regularly. things get out of control, things get out of hand, and Hitler says, look, Rom, I've got to go to this meeting, I've got to give a speech, okay? Why don't you go away? I've rented a house out in the countryside where we can get away from everyone. It's making the party look bad. It's hurting both of our standings. You and I were friends for a long time. We need to deal with this. We need to work together. Take your head leaders of the SA or brown shirts. Go off to the place ahead of time. I'll meet you tomorrow with my guys. We'll sit down. We'll have some breakfast in the morning, and we'll talk about this, away from all the politics, away from everything, and we'll come to some sort of agreement, some sort of new plan. I can't let you be in charge of the military anymore, but maybe I can give you something. So Rom agrees, and he goes off with his 18 people. Hitler sends a new group, the SS, not the SA, or the black shirts, and they go and they murder everyone inside, including Rom's lover, who's a man, sharing his bed. Now this is key, that Rom's a homosexual. Because before this time, homosexuals were never a problem for Hitler. He had known Rom was homosexual, never made a thing of it, never was an issue in any way. Rom was not alone among homosexual members of the Nazi Party. Hitler just didn't really care about that stuff. His morality, that stuff just didn't matter as far as we could tell. But at this point, he suddenly decides homosexuality is a problem. It paints Rom to many people as a deviant at the time, and a lot of people understand that. I think Hitler's playing with the idea that you're not worried about Hitler coming after you if you're not this thing. So he goes after the Jews, but if you're not Jewish, he's not going after you and your family. If you're not homosexual, he's not going after you. You're not worried about it when he picks on these small groups bit by bit. But either way, he makes a big deal about how Rom's a homosexual, and Rom's on trial. This is called Night of Long Knives, as I've said. It was called Executive Order 1066. In Star Wars, Executive Order 66 is when the Stormtroopers go around and kill the Jedis. Or the black shirts go around, in this case, and kill the Jedis. And I'm sure George Lucas meant that as part of his plan. Only in this case, he needed a way to get rid of the Jedis, and he was looking at German history to make his plot line, and so he went with this order as a way to do it. And just nod to history. George Lucas himself, the guy who makes Star Wars, is, of course, Jewish. This leads us... back to Rome. So, this is interesting. Rom is going to be put on trial. He's the only one arrested. The others are all murdered. The brown shirts are quickly either let go, turned to regular party Nazis, pushed into the military for new jobs, or if Hitler thought they were really loyal to him, if he really trusts them, absorbed into the black shirts. You also had to be of pure German birth, going way back, in order to be a member of the black shirts of the SS. The Nazi SS, or the super Nazis we're going to talk about later, you can argue about who knew what when, but the SS knew everything that was going on, and they were a part of everything. They were the camp guards, they loaded up the Jews, they knew absolutely what was going on. Historians argue about what regular Germans knew when they knew it, but if you're a member of the SS, there's no question, not only you were a part of everything, but you knew about it long term, and you actively helped bring it about. Either way, Rom was found in his jail cell. They'd give him a pistol. No field marshal. Field marshal is the rank Rom wants to get. No field marshal, which is like a really high-level general, had ever been captured in German history. Not once. Going back to the Teutonic Knights, which is, going back to like the Crusades and way before guns were a thing, which is also where the Iron Cross comes from, that symbol, that Christian symbol that becomes a award for the military. Either way, no field marshal ever given up. You were expected, sort of like a captain of a ship, to go down with the ship. So if your men were captured, if you had given up, if you had done such a bad job as a commander, that everyone was going to be captured, you were expected to commit suicide or die in combat. Some of the commanders had done this in more recent time, after swords had become a passé thing, by taking their pistol and shooting themselves through the head. So they're given a field marshal's pistol to Röhm, which is symbolic, and they officially announce that he committed suicide, which makes him look guilty, avoids Röhm going on trial. Röhm might have said some things Hitler didn't want said. Now, here's the interesting thing about that. Archaeologists dug up Röhm's grave after the war, way after the war. And although the cadaver certainly had started degrading, they found that there were 12 large caliber bullet holes in his chest and no wound whatsoever in his head. The traditional way would be put the pistol to your head and pull the trigger. That's what the newspapers reported, Hitler reported, Goebbels reported, how Röhm died in his cell. They dug out his body after they found in the cell that it was kept in a bunch of bullet holes in the wall of high caliber guns used by the SS, the Nazi machine guns. So the theory is out there now, and the almost undeniable likelihood that Röhm, and as far as our class is concerned, this is just what happened. Röhm was shot in the cell to avoid the trial, to stop Hitler from looking bad. Keep his secrets. Röhm could have, for example, talked about how Hitler used to date his niece. That would have been very embarrassing in the trial. Now we get to Goebbels, which is Hitler's propaganda guy. Goebbels is the best speaker in the Nazi Party outside of Adolf Hitler. Goebbels only joins up with Hitler after Hitler gets out of jail. He used to think Hitler was a maniac, but he starts to get a lot of power with Hitler and really becomes a huge devotee of Hitler. The Kristallnacht is the most important event, perhaps in the entire war. Certainly in the history of Nazi Germany. It determines whether or not the Holocaust happens, period. If this night goes bad, Hitler never rounds up Jews and puts them in camps. Never rounds up Gypsies and puts them in camps, or Slavs. Never rounds up Catholics and put them in camps. He's just not going to do it. He wasn't sure if the German people would go along with it, if their hatred of the Jewish people matched his own, because he'd been kind of lying to them and using excuses, or at least avoiding the question. He knew that he had made veiled threats against Jews. And so what he wants is a test for what's going to happen. Goebbels is going to do what's called a pogrom. A pogrom shows up multiple times in history or whatever. It's largely associated with Russia, when the Tsars would have Cossacks come down and burn Jewish shops. Fievel from Fievel Goes West, from the American Tale stories, from Disney shows or whatever. His family is destroyed by a bunch of cats. He's a little mouse, who are burning down buildings, everything. They got those tall Cossack cats, and that's what they're referring to, that in Russia they had a pogrom, and their Jewish family left for America, where they'd be more free or whatever. Goebbels says, I got this idea. A German politician was killed in France by a couple of Jewish guys. Let's use this as a test. I'll announce that people should go crazy and burn Jewish synagogues, homes. Synagogue is a temple, a Jewish temple, Jewish church. Schools. Burn it all down. And let's see if the people go for it. The brown shirts will be around and make sure it can go down. But largely, regular people got to go for it. And most importantly, when the brown shirts do get involved, let's see if anyone tries to stop them. Let's see if there's any large protest against it. We know some of the German people are with us, but will anybody actually stand up? Will any Jewish friends help the Jewish people in Germany? Hitler says, I like the idea a lot, but it might backfire. So here's the deal. I will make you one of the most important rich Nazis in all of Germany if you can pull this off, Goebbels. But if it doesn't work, I'm going to blame you for everything. I'll be away when it happens. I'm going to go on a retreat, pretend like I didn't know about it, if it goes bad. And if it goes bad, then you're going to have to kill yourself and go on trial, confess to everything in a public broadcast, a public newsreel, which would play in movie theaters. And I'll talk about how terrible and horrible what you did was. If it goes well, I'll talk about how great it was, and I'll take credit for it. But if it goes bad, it's all on you. If you don't accept guilt for the whole thing, confess to it, and die, I'll kill your wife and your whole family. And I'll still kill you. But they'll have to go down with you. Goebbels agrees, does the broadcast, and basically nobody tries to help the Jewish people. They burned down temples and schools, you see here. You can see the Star of David. The Night of Broken Glass is a test of the German people. If none of the public cry out for the Jewish people, the Holocaust will begin. Down here it says, from Mean Girls, it's a quote from Mean Girls on the girl. There are two kinds of evil people. People who do evil stuff and people who see evil stuff being done and don't try to stop it. Some of the Germans participated and went after the Jews with a fever and intensity that points out just how racist the country had become. On the other hand, other people didn't participate, but did nothing to help their neighbors or friends, or their kids' friends, who were Jewish or gypsies or whatever. This goes to a famous quote. I'm just going to flip it. Okay, yeah. This comes to the famous quote. At first, they came for the gypsies. The full quote, normally I have you write it down in class, but the full quote is this. It's a very famous one. It shows them a lot of DBQs. At first, they came for the gypsies, but I didn't do anything because I'm not a gypsy. Then they came for the communists, but I didn't say anything because I'm not a communist. Then they came for the Jews, but I didn't say anything because I'm not a Jew. Then they came for the Catholics, and I did nothing because I'm not a Catholic. When they came for me, I looked around and I had no neighbors left to complain to. Does that make sense? Do you get that? Explain that quote at the end for today's assignment, along with explaining briefly what the Night of Broken Glass is and what the Night of Long Knives is. I'm also going to post a video and post, for the fourth thing and last thing, a reaction to the video. I'm going to post an additional video of people actually, survivors, who are actually there at the Night of Broken Glass, although they'd be very young kids, now they're really old people, talking about what it was like. All right, kids and kiddos, I'll talk to you later.